Watch Who? Hello, and welcome to Watch Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Mark.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm a Doctor Who fan.
And I'm new to Watching Who.
Watching for the very first time.
Very first time.
Oh, it was a bit somber for an opening of a new season.
I was going to go up, and I was like, today's not the day.
We're chilling out here. What do you want to... Do you want to have a breakfast or a bacon butty or something?
I'll just keep waiting for the toast.
You just want the toast? Oi, Harry, customer!
I'll just keep waiting for that toast. I'm hungover.
This cafe is the perfect place for it.
Exactly. Just waiting for my breakfast to come in. Mark's just tired.
Yeah, tired. But we should be excited. It's the brand new series. Season 25.
25. What is that anniversary? What's the 25th anniversary?
Silver
things.
Yep. Well, before we start, we've just got a couple of things from last season.
Oh, God.
So I can't remember if I told you this or not. I think I mentioned it in the Doskers that Lucas had met that girl from Dragonfire, the little girl.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Well, someone else got in touch. Darren on YouTube commented. And, I said I thought someone impersonated that girl.
Yeah.
There's a whole story on our YouTube on Dragonfire. I won't go into it all because he puts quite a long explanation. But basically, if you want the full
thing, go there, yeah?
Yeah. Basically, it was a man, so I think pretending to be her. It's all in this thing. I'm not going to read it all out. He says when the DVD producers were looking for her to do, the documentary about it, this man got in touch and sort of pretending to be her, I think. Anyway, it all got sorted out and they found out that it wasn't really her. So my impersonation memory was correct. I didn't realise it was that.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want the whole story, go on our YouTube, look under Dragonfire, and you'll see the whole explanation of that girl. It's only in Doctor Who would you get this random girl that turned up in an episode and have all of these things going on. But anyway.
Nothing surprises me anymore, to be honest.
Well, let's get into today's story because I'm quite excited about this one. Remembrance of the Daleks. This is the one that Ross has on video that he never gave back.
Bastard! Damn you, Ross!
Yep, Ross borrowed this one, and that's the last I saw of it. Is he out there? Does he still have it? What happened to my Remembrance of the Daleks DVD, Ross? I mean, video, Ross.
Ross, if you're listening, I'm coming for you.
Every time I try and track him down, I can't find any trace of him on the internet at all. It's so weird. All my primary school friends have no trace on the internet. Well, Tom does. I'm friends with him on Facebook, but I've not spoken to him yet. But
have you looked through Tom's friends to see if he's friends with anyone?
Yeah, I've done it all. I've done it all.
I know you have. I knew you had. I said it knowing that.
I've really tried. I cannot find where Ross is, what he does, anything. I've searched for his brother. I can't find his brother. None of Ross's family are online at all. It's so weird. I tried to look for the kids that used to live next door to him. Can't find them either. Everything just to get in touch with Ross and say, wouldn't that be a great episode if we got Ross on one day, maybe?
I mean, yeah. I don't know if it would be. I mean, you just heard about the fight I had last night. So if I actually met Ross, who knows what could happen? Verbal fight, by the way, people. Verbal fight. Don't mess with me.
It'll be fine. He probably doesn't remember.
Yeah, I know. And I'll be like, you. He'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I had the Remembrance of the Daleks Doctor Who poster magazine. Ross had that as well. I remember that. He had a poster of a white Dalek.
I reckon he's still a Doctor Who fan.
I know. I think so.
Must be. Maybe you'll meet him at a convention one day.
Yeah, I just don't know where he is.
We should start a campaign. #Where's Ross?
#Where's Ross? Yes.
We should find Ross. I reckon he's it'd be weird to grow up being a fan, it come back. And even if you're not as much of a fan as you were, you must still have an interest.
Well, I've never messaged Tom about it. And there's no trace of Doctor Who on his Facebook or anything.
Yeah, but there wasn't with you for a long time. You kept it quiet.
Actually, do you know what? Random thing. Someone that I went to secondary school with, who I haven't spoken to since then, messaged me today and said, what do you think of the Doctor Who finale? How weird is that?
Yeah, see?
Let's get back to Remembrance of the Daleks.
Hashtag find Ross, yeah.
Find Ross. Well, this was one of the. Actually, no, this was the first video that I had. I had the box set tin with the chase and Remembrance of the Daleks before I lent it to Ross. So this is one of the very first stories I saw. I've always really liked it, and it came out in all the polls. This is like the top Seventh Doctor story, I think. It's a very different tone to last season.
Yeah, it feels it's not as silly. I'll give it that.
I think it feels like a completely different show compared to last time.
Yeah, I can get that. The thing that surprised me, because I said to you, like, I think I might struggle to talk about this, and you were a bit shocked. It did that thing, which is something that frustrates me a lot. And I'm not sure if it's because we know the Daleks, so there's almost like we almost need to remove that explanation completely. But there was a lot of things not explained, and like, oh, you'll find out, that went on for a while. Do you not feel that? I mean, like, we arrive, there was that whole, the doctor's like, oh yeah, and he's in there, news. Oh, okay. And I was like, what is it? I still haven't figured out, because we haven't met, because UNIT don't exist yet in this universe, do they?
Well, this is set in 1963, and so UNIT hasn't been around yet, so it's set at the school, as in Susan's school, the first one. Yeah,
I got that. That's the thing. And a lot of it, I was quite, oh, this is cool. I liked that. I like that sort of like throwback, especially at 25th anniversary. I couldn't work out. So obviously we don't have UNIT, but when the doctor meets, like, was one of them supposed to be like, I don't know, who are they supposed to be? It felt like we were supposed to know who they were or who they become or whatever. I don't know.
Are you talking about the Captain Gilmore and all? It's the army. It's just the regular army.
But what about that woman that's like with...
Well, she is like, wow, okay. Let's talk about them then. So that's Alison and Rachel. So she's like the scientific advisor. So there's the one very much like sort of Barbara/Liz.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. And I kept thinking, like, am I supposed to know, like, are they relation to something in the future that I don't know about?
It's the army and the scientific advisor of the army, because they've been called in because there's strange things. I think that's all you need to know. I mean, side note, these are all great side characters. I think this is a great cast.
Yeah, really good cast.
Compared to some stories where we struggle to find.
Like I said, I'd struggled because there was so much that was just, I felt expected to know, or the whole point was that you don't know and then it's all revealed. And sometimes they're the stories that frustrate me the most, because I'm like, either I want to learn it and I need to be seeing the puzzles. There was like nothing.
Also, the Captain, Rachel and Alison, they are given their own series. They've got like, they do audio series called Countermeasures.
Really?
They've done like 6 box sets of stories. So they go on to it from this story.
It was like, they didn't know the doctor. They meet him and she's like, oh, well, he knows more what's going on than us. So we should just follow. Like, there's a lot of this like expectation that we follow. The doctor's not saying anything. It wasn't until the 3rd episode that he sits down with Ace and explains about the hand of
Omega,
yeah. And then that I was like, okay, I'm getting some context. I'm sending it. And then like, maybe that was also the 3rd episode, when I'm really jumping around, but trying to make my point. And then so she's trying to explain what are Daleks, and Ace is explaining what the Daleks are. And I was thinking, when have you been explained this? Like, you've not met the Daleks before. You're from the future, but you still haven't met the Daleks. And how are you able to explain, oh, that blob and that blob? And it's perfect what she says. But I was like, have I missed something?
Well, no, because she's learnt at the beginning of the story about the Daleks and everything.
Not really, because like within, it goes straight into it. They come out, they see that girl. He's like, oh, we're here. I left something here. And they're off, and she keeps going to him like, but what? Professor, what's going on? All that. It's not really explained to her for a long time. He keeps leaving her in places. She runs off,
Well, I suppose that's the character of the Doctor. He does know what's going on, and we haven't had that character of the Doctor for a long time, where he's the only one that knows what's going on, and he's probably planned to come here, because we don't actually see them land or anything. They are straight into it.
We're straight into it, and like I said, I did understand, like, oh yeah, it's free, and it was in a yard, and I was like, oh, this is a school. I knew it. That felt like I know what that is. But then when there were bits further on, where I was like, well, when was this explained? That, or like, She go, what are these? And he's like, oh, they're Daleks. And then it explains what they are. But that sort of the knowledge of like why they're doing this. I mean, no one's met the Daleks here apart from the Doctor.
Yeah, and I think he was expecting the Daleks to be there because it's implied that the first Doctor left the Handamoviga in the junkyard and the Daleks are after it. So obviously we haven't seen that he has worked out that they're on their way. The Doctor doesn't realise that there's 2 sets of Daleks and that's all they get in brought up. So I think it's all sort of his plan all along, but he just hasn't really told anybody.
Or explained it. I wish you'd sort of, even at the start, explain like why we're here. Well, I left something. He does sort of say, "Oh, I left something here a long time ago." I wish he'd sort of explain. I mean, it's all in the title that we're going to meet the Daleks, right? This isn't a surprise.
No, but I don't have any problem with the way that it's explained throughout because it does it very slowly, bit by bit, and I think you can piece it together as you go along. But yeah,
for sure. But I mean, like you can piece it together because I understand what the Daleks are, and I've watched enough stories now to be able to piece it together. I just feel like there was a lot of expectation of like what people's level of understanding, knowledge, acceptance was. There's a lot of, I mean, like, look, within like the second story, oh, not even that, they've had like 2 meetings. What's his name, are like flirting up a storm, or he's like, oh, you can come back to mine. Stop. My mother would love to meet you. That was the line. I'm like, we're on the first episode. You literally.
I know, but I love the pace of it. You just straight into it, and there's a plenty packed into 4 episodes. There's nothing that feels like padding at all. It's one thing after another, and it's pushing the story on every time. That's what I really like about it.
Sometimes I felt it moved a little bit too fast. When the Dalek ship landed at the end of 3, I was thinking, you have 1 episode to wrap this up, and they've just landed. Like, we have to see them, we have to see how it's going to wrap up.
But also, I like that because we don't like lots of Dalek scenes. So I think that's quite good. And it's the second lot that are coming. So you've got the first lot, the grey lot, and then the white lot turn up. I think it's really well paced, actually. I didn't have any problem with it.
I think if I watched it again, now I understand where it's going, I might be able to appreciate it more. Spoiler, I ain't going to be watching it again. But if I was to watch it again, I think like, because I understand, well, that's why this is going. Whereas just watching it, and for me, quite often I'm just trying to follow a storyline. I'm not going into the details of how they're doing things, but people were just quite accepting, and I find that sometimes a bit frustrating. Equally, I don't like it when they're not accepting at all. So it's that balance. I don't like it when it's like, oh, he's back in jail. Oh, he's back in jail. Like, oh. But
I think they don't believe him at the beginning. They're like, who are you? Especially Gilmore. But then because it's literally they see a Dalek come out and they find its green blobbiness and stuff, they're like, it's right in front of us. We have to accept this straight away. I think that's probably what it is. It's like the evidence is there.
Also, for me, if you are going to have a story like this, it's the start of the season, right? Surely you also every season expect new people to be coming along. Start with the Daleks, it's a known thing. But there was nothing that really set up of like, I want him to have to explain who he is, especially in the first episode of a season.
Oh, the Doctor? Oh, I don't know. I think it's quite fun that he's this sort of walks in and is like, well, no, and there's those little sides where it's like, oh, humans and stuff like that. There's these little hints. I think it's just a bit more subtle, and he's so playing it completely, not silly, and a bit darker, and it's really serious, and you believe every word he says. I think the tone has completely shifted.
The only silly bit, which I did like, it did make me chuckle. It's like, again, I think it's the end of the 3rd episode where he goes, oh, unless I've miscalculated it, and he looks straight into the camera.
Yeah, that's a bit. It's still fun. We'll go through the story that I've written down, and we'll just talk about the characters as we go.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
pause you. Sorry, I just want to grab my water quickly. Okay. I knocked on the floor earlier.
The group captain said he was under attack. We have to get moving.
Hey, get in here!
So this did always confuse me a little bit because you don't see the TARDIS land and they walk straight in, and I never knew this was... I mean, Ace is very comfortable straight away. You wouldn't know this was her first proper story. Like, that's cool. And then you see the little girl at the and it's the 60s and everything. It's a really good opening. And the Doctor and Ace are so relaxed already. I really like where she goes off to the cafe and stuff. I really like this dynamic.
Did you know me that she keeps calling him Professor?
I know she does that. That's her thing, isn't it?
But like, it's literally, I think for me, that's the only thing that took away, because at the end of the last thing, he's like, don't call me Professor. And she's like, what do I call you, Doctor? Okay. And then I think that would have been nice to have been like, that ends her being this, and she joins in and she is this companion.
No, I think that's part of her character, isn't it? That's her character right now. She's got the Nitro 9, she calls him Professor, she's got a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And a rucksack and a big boombox thing.
That, it literally was, the only thing was the Professor thing, because it was like a point of like her joining. It was a scene. It was a scene. And it's almost like it was forgotten and like, oh, okay, right, and we get on with it.
But I really like that she just goes straight off. She's like, this is cool, like, we're in the 60s, I'm going to go to the cafe. And like you say, she has a bit of a love interest with Mike. Let's talk about Ace and Mike.
Yeah. I wonder if it was supposed to be like a young Mike Yates.
Oh, no, not at all.
Hey, Mike Yates has been evil in the past.
Well, so this is the thing. Mike, to have such as, all these supporting characters, you get to know them so well throughout this whole story. There's times where they're in the cafe, they go back to the cafe later. You can believe that Ace and Mike have struck up this friendship straight away. And when he betrays her later on and she's upset, you get that sort of soapy moment with her, you get the whole thing in this 4-part story with all the Daleks and everything else. I think it's great.
Though, it's interesting you say something, because it moves very quickly in that. It's the scene before where he's like, maybe we should go for a drink. She's like, oh. And then the next scene, she's like, you've betrayed me.
I mean, it's not as quick as that, but
it was, Mark. It was literally their second scene together.
No, it wasn't.
I think it was even the same story.
No, there's loads. I mean,
There's stuff happens in between. Like, I'm talking their scenes together, not the scene.
No, because they go off in the van. There's all of that in part 1. She goes back to the boarding house, and he's like, Ace, you need to stay here, have dinner ready, and all that. And then I think, later on, she's betrayed. But do you like Mike or not? Are we calling them like a couple, or is Mike a dickhead?
And it would be a couple. Whether I like it or not is another thing, but
because he gets arrested, and it's sort of sad that he gets killed at the end as well. But he pulls a gun out at her at the end.
Well, yeah, he has again. I couldn't work out. So he's doing this for the headmaster. I'm going to call him.
Well, it's not. No, it's Radcliffe, the other guy that gets killed.
I presume to the headmaster of the school.
So I think the headmaster of the school is working for the White Daleks, and then Radcliffe, the other guy, is working for the Grey Daleks. Mike is working for Radcliffe, and he's supposed to be helping the army sort stuff out.
And as the army, they're just trying to get rid of all Daleks.
Yeah, but he's sort of secretly also helping Radcliffe out and thinks that...
Which is the Grey Daleks.
Which is the Grey Daleks. So he's using his intelligence that he finds out from the army to sort of inform for the other Daleks, and that's where he gets arrested, and that's where, because he uses Ace basically to find out what was going on.
I could not work out. He was like, I'm doing it for him, and I was like, but what is the ulterior motive of this? I couldn't work out why he was doing it.
I think it's just power, and I don't know why he's actually doing it. I don't know. Sometimes you like him in episode 1, and then he's a bit like horrible, talks down to Ace, and then he turns out to be a baddie and pulls a gun out. So you're like, I don't know.
He's a baddie, Mark. I knew he was a baddie the second he's going into that churchyard.
Yeah, he's no Billy.
He's no Billy. Billy would not be doing that.
Billy would not be doing that, no. So Mike is bad, I think. Yeah, we don't like Mike. Sorry. But it starts off so well.
They do qualify as a couple of who in that moment.
Yeah, they do have a thing, don't they?
There's more of a thing going on there than there was with last season. The girl that didn't come, the Welsh girl.
What, Ray and Billy? Yes.
Nothing going on there.
Yeah. But I like how Ace meets Mike at the cafe, and then he brings her into the story, and the Doctor meets Alison and Rachel in the van and stuff, and they're all sort of linked together, and off they go together. I think that works really well. So did you like those guys? Like I said, like Rachel's a bit like Barbara and Liz, and Alison is the blonde one. They're quite fun. They're a good sort of double act throughout. They all have these sarky comments, and they're like, oh,
I
whatever.
really liked them. Again, I understood the role of a scientific advisor in this. I couldn't work out what Alison's role was.
I think they both are. I think one's like a specialist in one subject and one's a specialist in the other. They need someone to talk to each other, don't they? And then they've got the captain as well. So they make a good team.
Clear.
He's great. I mean, he's sort of like, early brigadier type person, isn't he? So, but I just like how they all just work together and you just feel like you've been watching a whole series of them for like ages and ages already. You just get really familiar with them. And there's time to have those little discussions in between scenes as well. There's a lot happening, but it also doesn't feel rushed. I don't know. They've just got it perfectly right, I think. Maybe because I've watched this a million times.
I don't know. Maybe for me, that's why it feels rushed. Like I say, if I was to ever at gunpoint have to watch this again, then maybe I'd feel a bit differently. Also, I've got to remember, I mean, I did this episodes 1 and 2 like 2 days ago and then 3 and 4 today. I've got to remember this would have been broken up even more. This would have been a week in between each one.
But then, okay, so you have all the stuff in the junkyard. That's cool with the one Dalek and fighting and everything. It blows up and Nitro 9 again and everything. If we just skip to the end of the episode, though, that is cool. I mean, this is a moment in Doctor Who history. The Daleks going up the stairs.
Yeah,
that
was cool. That was cool.
That's a good cliffhanger. And the way that
I enjoyed him going, get up the stairs, and then we see it go up. Actually, that is what made me go into the next episode. That because I was like, how are they going to, like, he's against the door, how are they going to get out of this one?
And like the effect of that works really well. I think that all the effects in this, like, I forgot to say as well, you got the pre-title sequence with the ship at the beginning over Earth, and then you actually later on you actually get a full ship landing in the playground. That's not a model. They have built a whole ship with Daleks come out of, and like even like the Daleks like laser blasts and stuff where they go like skeleton. Like all the effects and stuff.
Really good. I agree.
And I don't know if it's also really effective because a lot of it's on location. So it doesn't feel like you're in a studio a lot of the time, does it? Maybe that's it because it just feels, and it's historical as well. There's nothing that you can see that's like
it because as a setting, even if it's from far away, we kind of understand what that is. Like I said, it's not even said, it's not as like blunt as that. Like part of me was like, are we going to bump into Barbara and Ian, like younger versions of them or something. But it is that time, and I quite liked that. Yeah,
just having that setting as well just really helps. And the Daleks aren't annoying. I just don't find them annoying at all. Maybe because they're not in it that much.
The Davros bit is Davros. Davros looks terrifying in it, though.
He looks really good, doesn't he?
It's really effective. Even though he doesn't move. I mean, he moves his face and stuff, but like, he's static where he is. It's very effective.
Going into part 2, a really great scene. And again, this is more storytelling and it's not padding, but it just adds to the story. When the Doctor's in the cafe and he's talking to the guy at night time and they're just talking about like sugar and the guy is about like his history and stuff.
Yeah.
And he just slows down and it's the Doctor like being like, well, I've made all these decisions. I've done these things. And it doesn't need to be there. It's a really nice way. It just shows that there's a new script editor. I think that, there's some different writers coming in and you wouldn't have got this last season at all. You wouldn't have it just slows down.
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake. The ripples merge, rebound off the banks in unforeseeable ways. The heavier the decision, the larger the waves, the more uncertain the consequences.
Life's like that. Best thing is just to get on with it.
The only annoying thing is, though, you have a great scene like that, and you can tell, I think it's been edited down, because the cafe guy's like, talking about like the sugar cane and everything, and what would have happened to me, and then he goes, best not to think about it, and then it just cuts to something else. Yeah. And you've had this really nicely paced scene, and then it always jars, this sudden cut, where I think there was more dialogue. And there's a few moments like that. We have a really nice moment with like Ace or something talking, and then suddenly it just cut to something else. And it's like the editing is just that little bit clunky.
But that's what really I mean annoying. About the general. That's why I wasn't a fan of the pace generally. I found that, and I don't think that's an edit. I think there's a lot to fit in. They just sort of move to the next thing as if and it's all very quick. And there's not a lot of time. Those moments are really lovely. I know exactly which scene you mean. And it was quite unexpected, but I really liked it. It kind of fit in with what it was and what was happening.
It felt like something from a modern drama or a modern episode.
Yeah.
Like you get like this series, and people are always talking, oh, it's woke and all this stuff, and they're talking, but it was happening back then.
Absolutely.
And, and it just felt like a really modern drama scene just plonked into this 80s Doctor Who story. It was so random, but it was great. I mean, there is sort of the themes, if you want to look at it. I mean, the sort of racism themes, because you've got the two sets of Daleks against each other. Yeah. You've got the scene in the house with that Ace finds the sign in the window and stuff. It's clever, it's someone's thought about this and put all these themes through it. It's got a racism theme throughout. Even Mike, when he's explaining to Ace, he's like, you've got to keep you got to look after your own and keep the outsiders out and stuff.
Well, that's what I was meaning by like his motive. I was like, that his motive, or was it this other guy, like he's got a connection to him? That's what I couldn't work out.
You think
I was like,
like
what is his motive? Is it what he was saying? But early on, he's very much driven by the Radcliffe.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it because Radcliffe preaches this and you're like, this is what I've been told? Or is it something that he believes? And therefore, that's why he's decided to do this to support Radcliffe.
Because Radcliffe felt like a 60s, what's his name? Nigel Farage sort of character. Now, if this was made now, Radcliffe would be Nigel Farage working with the Daleks and getting Mike involved and stuff. So maybe, it's all like more political views and stuff that they want to, because he said, I had power once, so I want power and stuff like that.
I couldn't work out if it was like a belief or whether it was like a belief in him and what he's on about.
Yeah, nowadays it would be Nigel Farage, and Holly Valance would be his second in command, because she is a big supporter of his. Holly Valance from Neighbours.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
but I get Neighbours in here somehow, Mark.
Yeah, I like the bit in the funeral home with the Hand of Omega, and the Doctor gets the casket and everything. That's cool.
I liked all that. I loved the effect of it levitating.
Yeah.
I love that the vicar was blind.
Well, he needed to be, really, otherwise he'd be like...
I love the fact that, like, I know where he's going to be. We'll have that blind vicar do it.
The blind vicar, best supporting character. All the stuff with Ace at the B&B, that is quite nice as well. Are you liking her character? Is it how you expected her to be?
Yeah, I like her. But I know I've just been quite critical, but I feel like I'm being critical because I do like her. This could have been 5. And it's very rare for me to say, let's add time. But like this, I feel this could have been 5, and this would have been a really nice 5, because I feel things rush, and the moments that don't rush that are nice are really nice. And I feel like they try and get a lot into 4.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think there's enough in there. I mean...
Oh, there's plenty in there, Mark. There is plenty in there.
I mean, and there's some great action stuff. Ace beating up the Dalek and going through the window. I mean, we haven't had a companion that's had their own action sequence like that ever.
No, that's true. It's been good. Well, since Ian.
Oh yeah, Ian would have done that, no problem at all.
We're in the 60s, of course Ian would have done that.
He would be, get out of my classroom.
Throwback, they're in the science classroom, Ian's future room.
Yes, yeah, hero moment in Ian's room, of course.
Of course.
But you like Ace then? You think I like her attitude in this. She gets involved. She's asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like her in this. It's a really strong story for her.
I think there's a nice little rapport between them. It's nice.
Yeah, already. We've already said the Dalek ship is cool. That's really cool. Oh, we see the special weapons Dalek, the big one that blows everything up. It's got the one... That's cool. Surprise. Again, they're sort of reinventing stuff. It doesn't feel like the Daleks have been going for like 25 years and they're really boring. It feels like they're sort of fresh. And
Daleks for a long time. I was trying to think. When you told me the title, when's the last time?
The Sixth Doctor and Joe Bell and all of that. Do you remember? A couple of seasons ago.
That's what I mean. I mean, there was a period where they were in every season, at least once. So for us to have gone a couple of seasons without them.
But no, it's nice. So it does feel fresh. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're seeing them again. And then it's all the Doctor's plan. And again, it does revolve around, he knew all along that the Hand of Omega was sort of its own entity. And then he tricked Davros into blowing up Skaro and stuff. But it's great. They left Davros right at the end.
Yes, I agree. I liked it, Davros. But this is why I think it could have been a 5. Because what we ended up with in this story was like, with 2 sets of Daleks against each other. We had all that hand of whatever thing, Omega stuff. We then get Davros right at the end. We get that whole stuff with the girl.
Oh, the girl! I forgot about the girl. I mean, another
There's a
girl.
lot of things thrown in that I think could have been. I mean, that girl does not come in until that last story. She's around, but her story arc does not even kick in until the last story.
You were born to serve the Dalek.
Last episode.
That's so clever, though, that she's linked to that Dalek, and then when the Doctor talks it to death, she spins round and stuff. I think it's really cool. It's a really great idea. Oh, yeah, because she's underneath the thing with Ratcliffe, isn't she? And you don't expect that. She's done conventions, definitely. She's been herself at conventions. I don't know, all the action is brilliant. The music is fine. It's the same usual sort of synthesizer.
It doesn't annoy me.
Too silly.
It just felt like what it needed to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a shock when Mike gets killed at the end. And
yeah, that was a shock. As in, and you see him dead. The camera's on him dead. I don't think we've had that for a while.
Do you know what? I find that shot more scary than like anything else I've seen in Doctor Who, for a long time. It's just very,
And it's quite a somber ending to be like, did we make the right thing? Then they're like, who knows?
To see the consequence as well, because we're at the funeral at the end as well, is even, we don't usually have that, do we? Usually it's like, oh, well, nice to see you, everyone. We're off now. It's all, but this has that very different tone, that sort of, I think it's resetting everything from maybe the criticism from last season, from the fans and everything has sort of started to come through now. And this Doctor has sort of found his way a bit more. Because it's always a bit funny, their first season.
Their first episode and stories are always, it's never what it ends up being. And I said,
And it would have been completely different if Mel was in this. It just wouldn't have been the same.
It would have been so different.
It just works for Ace. She just fits in with it all. I don't know, it just all works.
Can't imagine Mel with the Daleks.
No. It just, everything just happened to work. Sometimes there's always an element where like, oh, if only they'd done this or they'd done this. But I think this time it's like, actually,
I just wish there'd been more time. That's all. I feel like there could have been a little bit more time to explain things, to give things space and a bit of pace.
Wow.
Pace and ace.
Cool. Pace and ace. Well, I mean, if you haven't got anything else.
I don't think I do. What's next?
Oh, okay. Well, it's 3 episodes next.
Ooh.
And it's called The Happiness Patrol.
The Happiness Patrol.
Okay.
I think it'll be set in space on a ship.
Okay. We'll see. Wow, okay, that was a fairly quick one, I suppose. But, I mean...
We say this. Usually when there's not a lot to criticise, they are quick.
Yeah. I think we're just criticising Mike, basically, and his character in this one.
A bit of a place for me, but... Right, well, where can you find us, Mark?
Okay, well, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at 2watchwho, or you can find us at buymeacoffee.com/2watchwho. And I think everyone loves this story, so I think everyone's going to agree with us this time. It's a good start to the season, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's hope it continues.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. We'll see you next time then. Bye.
Bye.
2 Watch Who.